Hi, welcome back. It's been a while, hasn't it? It's been over a week since I last posted a vid. I didn't do it last week because I had the kids with me, and the kids didn't have daycare last week, so I couldn't make a vid and all. Especially since I refuse to have my kids be in the videos for the time being, so that's why. So I figured today, and this is belated because I was planning on doing this before Halloween, but it never materialized. But I'm hoping to talk about my paranormal experiences in Sweden, particularly in this house. I already talked about my paranormal experiences in the States, particularly in Maryland and stuff. So, feel like I'm coming down with something all of a sudden. So, let me get right into it. I've been living in this house for 12 years now. I moved to Sweden in 2006. And speaking of which, I will do a separate video talking about why I moved to Sweden and how it took me a while to adapt and all this other stuff. And I'll get into another video eventually about my experiences living in Sweden. So, just sit back tight about that. So, when I first moved here, there wasn't hardly any paranormal activity going on. And let me give you guys the backstory about this house. This was originally my significant other's grandfather's house, or as he calls, as they call grandparents in Swedish, farfar and farmor, which is basically father's mother and father's father. And my significant other inherited the house from his grandfather after he moved back here, and his grandfather did die in the house. He died in the upstairs bedroom. But before him, there was another person that died in the house who was actually the original owner of the house, who had this house built in 1947, and she was an old lady that also died in the house. Where she died, I think she may have died in the same bedroom as my significant other's grandfather did, but I'm not sure about that. His grandmother didn't die in the house, but I kind of get the feeling she's here in some capacity too, because she did have Alzheimer's, and so there's a possibility her spirit may be lingering. I'm not sure about. So I think a lot of this started around the time, probably around 2009, 2010. Friends of mine began noticing activity in the house that I didn't see or hear. And I was actually approaching it very skeptically at first because I never felt anything. I'm an empath. I can sense spirit activity. And I never felt anything. And, but my friends who were my neighbors, whenever they spent the night here, always felt like there was someone around them, someone didn't want them here, all this other stuff. And I'm like, pish posh, I don't feel none of that. None of that has ever happened to me. Although, I do think in 2009, there may have been an experience, but I passed it off to something else. I was sleeping and I heard voices, but I didn't think it was voices. I thought I was hallucinating because I was taking this cough medicine that has a very high alcoholic content, and they actually warn you about hallucinating. So I thought it was a side effect of the medicine. I didn't think it was anything. And by the way, I had like a really bad case of bronchitis around that time, so I didn't think nothing of it. So I'm trying to remember the very first paranormal experience I had in this house. I think it would be much easier to talk about the major experiences that I've had, that the ones that really stand out, because there's been times where I thought I've heard voices, but they always seem to be distant from me. Like, for example, if I'm upstairs and I hear something down here, if I hear something, it always seems to be far away, like it's downstairs or something, or it's upstairs or something. I think the spirits of this house like to keep their distance from me. Either because they sense something big in me, or here's the thing. With my significant other's grandparents and anyone older than that, which I would say 30s at least, people in Sweden prior to World War II used to learn German as a second language compared to English that they learn now. So when I met his grandparents, particularly his mom, who is his mother's mother, and his farfar, who is his father's father, they did not know a lick of English, and I did not know a lick of Swedish when I first met them, so I could not communicate with them. So I kind of think that the language barrier between us might be the reason why they're keeping their distance from me a little bit, but who knows? Or they sense, like I said, they sense something dark and dangerous within me. I don't know. So I don't honestly remember what the very first experience I had that made me question that my friends might have been right. But I do know that the activity in the house began to increase more once my kids were born, which makes sense. If you're into paranormal activity and stuff, you would know that children tend to bring out paranormal activity more because they have a lot more energy than adults do. And they say that spirits feed off that energy more. So my son was born in 2013, and then the next year my daughter was born. So that was around the time that the activity in the house began to pick up a little bit more. And in a way, it kind of makes sense because my kids are, and my significant other's great grandchildren. And, you know, maybe you just want to check them out or whatnot. I don't know. But yeah, I can give a few examples. So let's see. So, I'm showing you the door right now because this has activity sometimes. Now, there will be times where I swear I hear the door opening, but then this would be on, and if the door opened, you would hear this sound. And you don't hear that. You just hear the door opening. Like this. You'll just hear that. And then you also hear that, which is kind of hard to do when you do this, because then, you know. And the thing is, even when I hear that and this is on, I would still find it like that. And as you can see, if you open it and close it, you find the latch like that. And I found the latch like that a few times without ever hearing the door open or hearing this thing go off. So that is really weird. This is a closet in the upstairs bathroom. I keep it closed. What's behind it is mostly a very, very crowded closet. However, I do not like this. This is probably the only area in the house that I really don't like. And the funny thing is, I can go in there and get something without any problems. Like yesterday I put Halloween decorations in there. But the reason why I don't like this so much is because I always get a sense of a presence that doesn't want me to be there. Like, I get a huge feeling of, you're not wanted here, go away. Now, here's the thing. I don't think this entity in here is malicious or a negative. I think it's just a spirit that just wants to be left alone. And I asked my significant other what this room used to be. And he says it was his grandmother's sewing room. Well, if you know some people who... Hold on, let me get in. If you know anyone who's into sewing or is into crafts, you know how they can be sometimes where they just want to be left alone. That's the kind of feeling I get. That could explain why I get that feeling. And it could be his grandmother that's doing that. But I have no trouble going in there and getting stuff or putting stuff in there. However, I will not leave this curtain open. I feel better when the curtain is closed, and whatever's in there feels better when the curtain is closed. And since I leave it alone, it tends to leave me and everybody else alone. And sorry if I'm talking weird right now. I'm a little bit out of breath because I walked up the stairs. So, let's go. So, I'm on the stairs right now. Sorry if you can't see the actual stairs. You just see the railing. But you'd be surprised to know how much footsteps I hear on these stairs. Most of the time, it's steps going up. And the funny thing is, you'll go check out to see who it is, only to not see anybody. And my son has done the same thing before, where we both heard someone coming up the stairs. My son came over this way, looked down and see who it was, and there was nobody on the stairs. So you hear footsteps on the stairs. It's not like an everyday occurrence. It happens once in a while, which indicates it's residual or something. And residual basically means it's like a record player. There's no intelligence behind it. It keeps doing it again. So, and the other thing I hear is someone coming down the stairs. Now, there's an interesting story about the same experience twice that I'll get into in a bit. But this is one of the active areas in the house. So right now, I'm in, I would say, the living room, even though we're upstairs. This is probably one of the most active places in the house. And the funny thing is, it's not so much, here's the thing. The room where my significant other's grandfather died in is right next door to this room. But the thing is, you never hear anything in that room when you're in this room. But when you're in that room, you hear all kinds of stuff out here. You hear anything from people walking. There's been times where I've heard someone typing on the freaking computer, and when I get up and think it's my significant other, I find no one on the damn computer. Yeah. And some people are like, well, maybe it's a mouse doing it. Yeah. A mouse is not big enough to make the keyboard. It sounds like someone is on there typing on there. There's a difference. There's scuttling, and then there is this. And since I type a lot, I know it's this. So that's what I hear. And again, it's mostly audio and stuff. So yeah, that's one thing. So right now, I'm in the bedroom. The room where my significant other's grandfather died. And I think the original owner. Now, they didn't die in this bed, so don't get alarmed. But I want to tell you the only visual experience I ever had in this house. Ooh, I'm getting a weird glare. And that is, ignore that. This is like a draw wall that my significant other brought for the kids to draw and stuff. And, I don't know, that might be that. I keep getting a lot of glares across the screen. So I was in bed one night, and actually it was technically 4 a.m, and I knew my significant other was going to work, and I wake up around that time, and I see a shadow leaning over the bed, and at first I thought it was my significant other, so I reach up to go hug him. Then I notice the shadow was taller than what my significant other is. So thinking it was an intruder, I do that, try to punch the person, only for my hand to go through nothing. This is driving me nuts. How about we do this? Okay. I'm lying on the bed now, so sue me. So after I try to punch the ghost, or punch the shadow who I thought was an intruder, my hand goes through absolutely nothing, and the thing is, if it was an actual person, I would have saw them leave, let alone I would have actually hit them, because that was a good shot right there. And they probably would have hit me back if it was an actual person. Instead, the thing just vanished. That's the only time I've ever seen it. And I think that would be the only time I ever see it since I was aggressive towards it. But in my defense, I thought I was an intruder, and I'm paranoid that way. So sue me, ghosties. So we're back in the kitchen now. Haven't had too much experiences in the kitchen. But if I do hear something in the kitchen, I'm usually in the other room. That, because there's 2 bedrooms. One bedroom is used for the kids' room, and the other room is used for a bedroom. And on 2 occasions, I would be in the bedroom, and one time, this was like 4 in the morning also. Um, at the time, we had someone living out in the guest house. And I know that sounds so posh, but trust me, it's just a lot of people here have guest houses, and they're usually very small and stuff. But someone was living out in the guest house at the time, and um, I heard them come in, and then I heard them walking around down here, and then I heard them starting to go upstairs, and I'm like, why the hell is he going upstairs? Because he was supposed to, I know he was supposed to leave early to go to work, and I think my significant other was already at work. Because, yeah, he had a very early shift that day. And so, suddenly I felt the impulse to look outside the window, and I do, and I don't see the person that is living in the guest house at the time. I don't see his car out there, which means he already left. And I'm like, who the hell is in the house then? So I get out of bed. I go up the stairs to see if there's anyone upstairs. There is absolutely no one upstairs, and I did not hear anyone come down the stairs. And unfortunately, that's not the first time I've heard that happen. So cut to last year. I'm in bed again, but this time I'm taking a nap. It's like 4 p.m. And this time I hear someone come down the stairs, and I think this is my significant other. I hear him go in the kitchen, and I said, hey, can you come in here? And there's no response. So I still hear he's out in the kitchen, and I'm like, hey, babe, can you come in here for a second? No response. And then he goes up the stairs, and I'm like, So I ignore it, get a little bit more sleep, and then I go upstairs. And then when upstairs, I talked to him. I said, hey, how come you didn't reply to me when I talked to you downstairs? He's like, what do you mean? I said, weren't you downstairs about an hour ago? No, I haven't been downstairs at all in the last few hours. And I'm like, well, who the hell was downstairs then? Dun, dun, dun. Oh, yeah. I almost forgot. There was a very interesting experience in the kitchen. So, we had a piece of candy fall underneath a cabinet down there. And it happened to roll underneath a spider web. Yeah, I'm not going to touch anything that rolls underneath a spider web. And it stays there and stays there and stays there. And then finally, like a few days later, I look in the sink, and the piece of candy that fell on the floor was now in the sink. And my significant other was in the bathroom, and I said to him, thank you for picking up the piece of candy. I didn't want to get it since I was under a spider web. My significant other once again gives me a what the fuck look. And I'm like, didn't you pick it up? And he's like, no. And I'm like, I look at the candy, see if it's been licked, see if it's sticky from being licked or have any teeth marks in it, as if one of the kids picked it up. There's nothing like that on there. And my significant other's mother hasn't been here in a while. Hadn't been there in I messed that up. My significant other's mother hadn't been here in a while either, so she definitely didn't pick it up. And my friend Angie hadn't been here in a while, and she hasn't picked it up either. So seriously, who the fuck picked it up? Because it wasn't me, and it wasn't my significant other, and it definitely wasn't my kids. Because they would have tried to eat the candy, as they normally do when candy falls on the floor. There's been times where I swear I hear someone shout or yell at me, and I wake up, and I'm like, and the funny thing is when they do it, my name sounds a little bit garbled, or a little bit echoey. It's very strange. And I think they're trying to wake me up. And usually when they do that, it's about I need to do something anyway or whatnot. So that's usually helpful. So I'm not scared by it. Then like a few weeks ago, I was upstairs by myself, and I thought I heard the kids downstairs. So I go downstairs, and there's no kids. I look outside the driveway, and the car's not in the driveway, so my significant other wasn't home yet with them. And then I walk, and then as I was coming back, I now hear footsteps upstairs in the bedroom where my significant other's grandfather died. And I just glared at the ceiling, because I know it's them. trying to think if there's anything else. Oh yeah, the most, other than the shadow figure, the most creepiest experience I ever had happened about 3 years ago when when I was upstairs by myself in the room where I said I hear stuff in the other room, and there's been times where I've heard someone typing on the computer keyboard. So I'm at that same computer, and it was probably 2 a.m. And out of this ear, I started hearing footsteps coming up the stairs, and I thought it was either my significant other or my friend Angie, because my friend Angie lived with me for a while too. And I looked towards the stairs, there's no one there, and then I'm like, oh, okay, the ghosties are acting up again. That's what I usually think when stuff like that happens. I think the ghosties are doing it. And then out of my ear, I suddenly hear someone say, Lindsay. And this is not with a Swedish accent, by the way. My first name said in Swedish has a distinct sound. Usually people are like Lindsay. This sounded like American, like Lindsay. And I think it could be my grandfather, because I do have some of his stuff in my house, and they say that if you have objects of someone that's passed on, they can be imprinted on it and can cause activity too, so that could be a possibility. So those are most of my paranormal experiences. I'm not the only one. My best friend has had paranormal experiences here, and she used to be a skeptic until she stayed in my room and she heard stuff and didn't like being in the bathroom either and all this other stuff. But if you're interested in this, let me know, and I'll make a part 2 about how my friends experience stuff in this house. So that's all about my little paranormal active house. Bye, y'all.